100 sentences with I can. 1. I can play the guitar beautifully. 2. I can play my favorite video game for hours. 3. I can play tennis very well. 4. I can play chess, but only if I have a partner. 5. I can play a musical instrument, the piano. 6. I can play the drums fairly well. 7. I can play the violin with precision. 8. I can play basketball even though I'm short. 9. I can play poker professionally. 10. I can play Sudoku without making mistakes. 11. I can play ice hockey competitively. 12. I can play table tennis pretty well. 13. I can play the trombone, though I haven't in a while. 14. I can play the harmonica when the mood strikes me. 15. I can play cricket like a pro. 16. I can play soccer even in rainy weather. 17. I can play online multiplayer games with ease. 18. I can play cards all night if I want to. 19. I can play squash, but I need more practice. 20. I can play baseball, even though I prefer other sports. 21. I can play computer games during my free time. 22. I can play a game of pool easily. 23. I can play the flute if given the opportunity. 24. I can play hockey despite the cold. 25. I can play checkers and usually win. 26. I can play the trumpet for a long time. 27. I can play backgammon when the opportunity arises. 28. I can play the ukulele with my eyes closed. 29. I can play a round of golf on the weekends. 30. I can play rugby even though it's rough. 31. I can play the clarinet quite masterfully. 32. I can play bridge, but I find it challenging. 33. I can play Monopoly like a business tycoon. 34. I can play volleyball on the beach. 35. I can play a role in a drama play. 36. I can play dodgeball, although it can be tiring. 37. I can play the cello, it's my favorite instrument. 38. I can play the xylophone in a band. 39. I can play lacrosse, but I need to be fit. 40. I can play softball on the weekends. 41. I can play the harmonium at religious ceremonies. 42. I can play mobile games when I'm bored. 43. I can play racquetball despite not being very athletic. 44. I can play the recorder, a skill I learned in school. 45. I can play water polo in the summer. 46. I can play darts at my local pub. 47. I can play the digital piano for my family. 48. I can play the saxophone in a jazz band. 49. I can play hide and seek with the neighborhood kids. 50. I can play dominoes at family gatherings. 51. I can play the accordion at parties. 52. I can play table football at the local cafe. 53. I can play frisbee in the park. 54. I can play the viola in an orchestra. 55. I can play rummy with any card deck. 56. I can play the tambourine for any occasion. 57. I can play badminton in my backyard. 58. I can play billiards with a lot of strategy. 59. I can play an action-packed role in video games. 60. I can play the maracas when the band needs me. 61. I can play beach volleyball during summer. 62. I can play the synthesizer with unique sounds. 63. I can play mahjong during family gatherings. 64. I can play the euphonium for the school band. 65. I can play pinochle on holidays with my relatives. 66. I can play netball if I find a team. 67. I can play the banjo at the festival. 68. I can play charades during parties. 69. I can play the castanets for a Spanish dance. 70. I can play mini golf for kids' birthday parties. 71. I can play ultimate frisbee at the park. 72. I can play the bouzouki, a traditional Greek instrument. 73. I can play tennis doubles with my best friend. 74. I can play the mandolin for folk music. 75. I can play Trivial Pursuit and usually win. 76. I can play the didgeridoo, an Australian wind instrument. 77. I can play the harpsichord for classical music. 78. I can play Capture the Flag at a field day. 79. I can play a character in a role-playing game. 80. I can play solitaire when I need to pass time. 81. I can play electronic music with a synthesizer. 82. I can play water skiing in summer. 83. I can play the shakuhachi, a traditional Japanese flute. 84. I can play handball pretty well. 85. I can play the glockenspiel for a marching band. 86. I can play Jenga with steady hands. 87. I can play a strategy board game like Risk. 88. I can play ping pong at the recreation center. 89. I can play the auto harp for folksy tunes. 90. I can play ice skating in winter. 91. I can play bocce ball at the park. 92. I can play the ocarina, a type of ancient flute. 93. I can play snakes and ladders with my siblings. 94. I can play the French horn for my music class. 95. I can play bingo at the community center. 96. I can play the lute for Renaissance music. 97. I can play Scrabble and always find the best words. 98. I can play kite flying on windy days. 99. I can play the bagpipes for a parade. 100. I can play an old vinyl record on my record player.